General Dynamics Information Technology, Incorporated, GDIT, of Falls Church, Virginia, protests the Department of Homeland Security's, DHS, award of a contract to Prospecta Engineering, Inc., of Chantilly, Virginia, pursuant to a request for proposals to manage and operate the DHS Hybrid Computing Environment, HCE, and to provide professional services to automate, optimize, and modernize the HCE. GDIT protests virtually every aspect of the agency's evaluation of proposals under the non-price factors and asserts that the agency failed to conduct meaningful discussions. We deny the protest. On January 14, 2021, the agency issued the RFP, seeking proposals for award of a single indefinite delivery indefinite quantity, IDIQ, contract under which task orders will subsequently be issued during a 5-year base ordering period, a 3-year option period, and a 2-year option period. The solicitation provided that the source selection decision would be based on a best value trade-off between the following evaluation factors: 1. Facility clearance/level of safeguarding, 2. Corporate technical experience/reference checks, 3. Staffing/management approach, 4. Technical approach, 5. Oral presentation, and 6. Price. The solicitation provided for a 3-phase evaluation process in which Phase I proposals would be submitted and evaluated under the first factor, facility clearance and level of safeguarding. Offerors with proposals that received ratings of pass would be invited to submit Phase II proposals for evaluation under the second factor, corporate technical experience/reference checks. Following the agency's evaluation of the Phase II proposals, the highest-rated offerors would be invited to submit Phase III proposals for evaluation under the remaining factors. Of relevance to this protest, the solicitation identified various objectives, provided that the contractor shall develop, establish, maintain, and operate one or more centralized, integrated dashboards, stipulated that an offeror's dashboard must display all spending and purchasing under awarded task orders, and provided that the dashboard must be operational within the 120-day transition-in period. Finally, the solicitation provided that proposals shall be clearly and concisely written and shall provide convincing rationale to address how the offeror intends to meet the solicitation's requirements, adding that proposals must demonstrate a clear understanding of an approach for performing all of the requirements in accordance with the solicitation terms and conditions. On February 11, 2021, Phase I proposals were submitted by 7 offerors, including GDIT and Prospecta. 4 of the proposals, including GDITs and Prospectas, received ratings of pass. On March 24, Phase II proposals were submitted and were, thereafter, evaluated. Both GDITs and Prospectas proposals were determined to be among the most highly rated. Thereafter, GDIT and Prospecta were invited to submit Phase III proposals. On May 13, GDIT and Prospecta submitted their Phase III proposals, and each offer subsequently made an oral presentation to the agency. During GDIT's oral presentation, it became clear to the agency that GDIT did not understand the solicitation's dashboard requirements, specifically including the requirement that an offeror's dashboard must be capable of displaying all spending and purchasing under awarded task orders by the end of the 120-day transition-in period. In this context, during GDIT's oral presentation, the agency asked whether financial information would be available on GDIT's dashboard within 120 days, and GDIT confirmed it would not, stating that this would be done within certain days. Accordingly, the agency assessed a deficiency in GDIT's initial Phase III proposal regarding its noncompliance with the solicitation's dashboard requirements. Following review and evaluation of the offeror's initial Phase III proposals, the agency determined that it would be necessary to conduct discussions. By letter dated July 26, 2021, the agency provided GDIT with the agency's comments/questions/responses regarding GDIT's proposal. In its discussion letter, the agency identified areas of GDIT's proposal for which more information was sought. These included all of the areas of GDIT's proposal that contained evaluated deficiencies or significant weaknesses, as well as areas with relative weaknesses and/or areas for which the agency sought clarification. Among other things, the agency asked GDIT what features of the dashboard will be available at the end of the transition-in task order, and, more specifically, asked that GDIT confirm what functionalities will be available within 120 days, and what functionalities will be available within certain days. The agency also referenced Figure 20 in GDIT's technical proposal, which was labeled GDIT Roadmap, and asked GDIT to explain how the Figure 20 features related to the PWS's stated objectives. On August 6, GDIT and Prospecta submitted their final proposal revisions, FPRs. Thereafter, the FPRs were rated. In assessing a rating of some confidence to GDIT's FPR under Factor 4, technical approach, the Technical Evaluation Team, TET, concluded that the proposal contained various internal contradictions and/or ambiguities, which created confusion regarding GDIT's proposed approach. For example, in responding to the agency's discussion questions, GDIT stated, all of the features for the customer dashboard needed to meet the requirements of PWS 2.1.8, subject to government guidance and approval, will be complete at the end of the 120-day transition-in period. However, elsewhere in its FPR, GDIT stated that it would provide comprehensive financial consumption tracking alerts and reporting through delivery of enhanced HCE within certain days. The TET noted that, since the solicitation required an offeror's dashboard to display all spending and purchasing within 120 days, GDIT's statement that comprehensive financial reporting would be provided within certain days was confusing and contradictory. By way of another example, the TET noted that GDIT's FPR contained the following statement: we provide an enhanced HCE during transition in and within the first certain days with GDIT's already deployed cloud management environment at Equinix DC15 and our capability to incorporate existing DHS HQ cloud environments, Azure Cirrus and AWS Cloud Factory 2, CF2, with monitoring, expanded automation, and standard operating procedures, SOPs, across the HCE. With regard to this statement, the TET concluded it was unclear what is provided during transition and what is provided at certain days. By way of another example, the TET report referred to the following statement in GDIT's FPR. Enhanced HCE expands services with public cloud day 1 after transition, integrating upon DHS approval HQ clouds under DCCO SOPs using the knowledge of teammates. Among other things, the TET concluded that it was unclear what GDIT was referring to with regard to integrating upon DHS approval, elaborating that the proposal created uncertainty with regard to what DHS is approving. In summary, the agency assessed significant weaknesses in GDIT's FPR under Evaluation Factor 4, technical approach, stating, both the unclear descriptions and the contradictory statement about 120 days versus certain days significantly reduces confidence, and adding that the lack of clarity about what is included in enhanced HCE significantly reduces confidence. In assessing a rating of some confidence in GDIT's proposal under Factor 5, oral presentation, the agency noted that GDIT had not demonstrated its understanding of the solicitation's dashboard requirements and criticized GDIT's presentation, stating, GDIT's answers to many questions lacked clarity and were not succinct. When asked about an assumption in Scenario 2 on how the timeline would be affected if it was not a financial system, it took several minutes to say the timeline would be shortened. GDIT did not verbally demonstrate innovative and effective solutions, which reduces confidence in their response.
Overall, the TET described its responses to the agency's questions during its oral presentation as disjointed, inconsistent, contradictory, and difficult to understand, concluding that their presentation reduced confidence that GDIT will be successful in performing the contract. Subsequently, the Source Selection Authority, SSA, reviewed the evaluation record, noting that Perspecta was rated as the highest technically ranked offeror for factors 2, 3, 4, and 5. More specifically, with regard to Factor 2, corporate technical experience/reference checks, the SSA noted that both offers received high confidence ratings, but concluded that Perspecta's proposal provided better examples regarding modernization/optimization of an HCE, which was one of the procurement objectives. With regard to Factor 3, staffing/management approach, the SSA noted that, while both proposals were given the rating of high confidence, GDIT failed to clearly explain how it intended to improve total cost of ownership, which was another one of the procurement objectives. With regard to Factor 4, technical approach, the SSA noted that DIT's proposal was unclear regarding the dashboard functions it would provide and when they would be available. With regard to Factor 5, oral presentation, the SSA noted that both proposals received ratings of some confidence, but that DIT's oral presentation failed to reflect a clear understanding of the solicitation requirements regarding reporting of financial information. Overall, the SSA concluded, Perspecta was the highest technically ranked offeror and the lowest priced offeror. I see no benefit the government would receive in awarding to a higher priced offeror who was ranked lower technically. In summary, it is my independent decision that Perspecta's proposal offers the best overall value to the government. On September 29, the contract was awarded to Prospecta. This protest followed. GDIT protests virtually every aspect of the agency's evaluation of proposals under the non-price factors, and asserts that the agency failed to conduct meaningful discussions. As discussed below, none of DIT's complaints provides a basis to sustain its protest. Technical approach. First, GDIT challenges the agency's evaluation of DIT's proposal under Factor 4, technical approach, characterizing the agency's rating of some confidence for DIT's proposal under this factor as crucial to the award decision. Among other things, GDIT complains that the agency focused on inconsequential elements of DIT's proposal and relied on agency findings that were immaterial. In this context, GDIT acknowledges that the solicitation required an offeror to develop, establish, maintain, and operate a dashboard with real-time, on-demand access by DHS. The dashboard needed to track all spending and purchasing under awarded task orders in order to support financial budget, audit, and benchmarking activities, and the dashboard was required to be operational within the 120-day transition period. Nonetheless, GDIT asserts that, because its FPR contained general statements that GDIT would meet the solicitation's dashboard requirements, it was unreasonable for the agency to criticize the proposal on the basis of purported contradictions within the proposal and/or the agency's purported confusion. The agency responds by first referencing the terms of the solicitation, advising each offeror that its proposal shall be clearly and concisely written and must demonstrate a clear understanding of and approach for performing all of the solicitation requirements. Next, the agency references the fact that DIT's initial proposal was clearly deficient for failing to comply with the solicitation's dashboard requirements. Finally, the agency notes that, despite the agency's direct questions to GDIT regarding the dashboard requirements, both during DIT's oral presentation and during the subsequently conducted discussions, DIT's proposal failed to clearly indicate what would be included in its dashboard, and/or when the required dashboard capabilities would be available to DHS. As discussed above, the agency maintains that DIT's FPR contained internal contradictions, inconsistencies, and/or ambiguities. By way of an example, the agency notes that, while one section of DIT's FPR stated that its dashboard would be capable of displaying all spending and purchasing during the transition-in period, another section stated that comprehensive financial tracking/reporting would be available within days. Since the words all and comprehensive have essentially the same meaning, the agency maintains that it was unclear when the required capabilities would be available. Similarly, the agency maintains that it properly criticized DIT's proposal with regard to what capabilities were being offered as enhanced HCE, and when the capabilities associated with that term would be available. In short, the agency maintains that DIT's FPR failed to meet the solicitation requirement that proposals shall be clearly and concisely written and must demonstrate a clear understanding of and approach for performing all of the solicitation requirements. Overall, the agency maintains that its criticisms of DIT's proposal under Factor 4, technical approach, were reasonable and appropriate. In reviewing protests of awards, our office does not re-evaluate proposals but examines the record to determine whether the evaluation and source selection decision were reasonable and consistent with the solicitation's evaluation criteria and applicable procurement laws and regulations. While contracting agencies must treat all offers equally, a protester's disagreement with the agency's judgments regarding the relative merits of competing proposals, without more, is insufficient to establish that the agency acted unreasonably. Finally, it is an offeror's responsibility to submit a well-written proposal, with adequately detailed information, which clearly demonstrates the proposal's merits and allows a meaningful review by the agency. Here, based on our review of the record, we find no basis to question the reasonableness of the agency's criticisms regarding DIT's proposed technical approach. Consistent with the discussion above, the record reasonably supports the agency's assessment that various portions of DIT's FPR were conflicting, confusing, and/or ambiguous. As noted above, it was DIT's responsibility to submit a well-written proposal that clearly demonstrated the proposal's merits and allowed the agency to perform a meaningful review. based on our review of the record here, we find that the agency reasonably concluded GDIT did not. Accordingly, DIT's complaints regarding the agency's evaluation of proposals under the technical approach evaluation factor are denied. Oral presentation. Next, GDIT complains that the agency's evaluation of DIT's oral presentation was improper. More specifically, GDIT complains that the agency's criticism of DIT's failure to demonstrate an understanding of the solicitation requirements during the oral presentation was improper because DIT's responses to questions posed during the oral presentation were overtaken by the agency's subsequent discussions and DIT's submission of an FPR. GDIT also complains that, because the agency's evaluation of DIT's proposal under the technical approach evaluation factor criticized the proposal with regard to what GDIT was proposing, and when functionalities would be available, the agency's criticism of DIT's oral presentation, which discussed some similar concerns, constituted double counting of the proposal's flaws. The agency responds by first noting that the solicitation specifically advised offerors at oral presentations were being conducted in order for the agency to assess an offeror's expertise and ability to articulate complex technical concepts. Consistent with these provisions, the solicitation permitted an offeror to submit up to 30 slides to be referenced during the presentation, but also advised that it would not be given an opportunity to correct or revise those slides. In this context, the agency notes that, during DIT's oral presentation, its answers to many questions lacked clarity and were not succinct. For example, the agency questioned GDIT regarding its understanding, but DIT's responses didn't provide any details of what would be included. Overall, the agency concluded that DIT's oral presentation was disjointed, inconsistent, contradictory, and difficult to understand. Accordingly, the agency maintains that it properly assigned a rating of some confidence to DIT's proposal under Evaluation Factor 5, Oral Presentation. In reviewing a protest challenging the agency's evaluation of oral presentations, our office will not substitute our judgment for that of the agency. Further, an agency's evaluation is dependent on the information presented by the offeror. Finally, an agency is not precluded from considering an element of a proposal under more than one evaluation criterion where the element is relevant and reasonably related to each criterion under which it is considered. Here, we find nothing unreasonable in the agency's criticism of DIT's proposal with regard to DIT's oral presentation. As noted above, the solicitation specifically contemplated the agency's assessment of an offeror's ability to articulate complex technical concepts, provided that an offeror's demonstration of that ability constituted a separate evaluation factor, and warned offerors that, in the context of assessing oral presentations, offerors would not be given an opportunity to correct flaws in the slides on which the oral presentation was based. In this context, GDIT has failed to demonstrate that the agency's contemporaneously documented assessments of flaws in DIT's oral presentation were unreasonable. Further, in the context of this solicitation, DIT's subsequent responses to some of the agency's concerns in its FPR did not overtake or render invalid the agency's criticisms of DIT's presentation. Accordingly, since offerors were on notice that the quality of their oral presentations, including their ability to articulate complex technical concepts, would constitute a separate evaluation factor, the agency's consideration of DIT's limited understanding of the solicitation requirements, along with its disjointed, inconsistent, contradictory, and difficult to understand presentation did not constitute impermissible double counting. DIT's protest challenging the agency's evaluation under Factor 5, Oral Presentation, is denied. Corporate Technical Experience. Next, GDIT asserts that the agency's evaluation under Factor 2, Corporate Technical Experience, was flawed. In this regard, the record establishes that the agency assessed ratings of high confidence for both proposals, identifying 28 relative strengths and 3 relative weaknesses in Perspective's proposal, and 22 relative strengths and 11 relative weaknesses in DIT's proposal. GDIT challenges the agency's assessments regarding 3 of its evaluated weaknesses, and asserts that the agency failed to credit its proposal with various additional strengths. On this record, GDIT maintains that its proposal should have been evaluated as superior to Prospecta's under Factor 2 and that, had it been so evaluated, GDIT would have had a substantial chance of receiving award. The agency responds by giving GDIT the benefit of the doubt with regard to one of the relative weaknesses identified in DIT's proposal, and two of the relative strengths. Nonetheless, in light of Prospecta's uncontested $46 million price advantage, as well as the well-documented basis for determining that Prospecta's proposal was technically superior under all of the other non-price evaluation factors, the agency maintains that GDIT has failed to establish prejudice. We agree. Competitive prejudice is an essential element of a viable protest. Where a protester fails to demonstrate that, but for the agency's action, it would have had a substantial chance of receiving the award, there is no basis for finding prejudice, and our office will not sustain the protest, even if deficiencies in the procurement are found. Here, based on our review of the record, GDIT has not established the requisite potential for prejudice. More specifically, we conclude, consistent with our discussion above, that the agency reasonably evaluated Prospecta's lower-priced proposal to be technically superior to DIT's proposal. In this context, we note that GDIT has not challenged most of the relative weaknesses the agency identified in its proposal related to DIT's technical experience. Further, we have reviewed the multiple allegations regarding the additional strengths GDIT asserts should have been identified in DIT's proposal. Based on our review, we reject DIT's assertion that the agency should have evaluated DIT's technical experience as superior to Prospecta's. Accordingly, in light of Prospecta's uncontested $46 million price advantage, along with the agency's reasonable determination that Prospecta's proposal was technically superior, we reject DIT's assertion that it was prejudiced by the agency's actions. As such, DIT's assertions regarding the agency's evaluation of the offeror's technical experience provides no basis for sustaining its protest. Discussions. Finally, GDIT asserts that the agency's discussions were less than meaningful because the agency failed to label each of its requests for additional information as relating to relative weaknesses, significant weaknesses, or deficiencies. In this context, GDIT acknowledges that the agency's discussion letter asked numerous questions, but complains that the agency neglected to advise GDIT whether any of these areas were significant weaknesses, or even relative weaknesses, to allow GDIT to better focus on its final proposal. In neglecting to specifically identify the level of concern associated with each area, GDIT asserts that the agency misled GDIT. The agency responds that its discussions with GDIT were proper. Specifically, the agency points out that it meaningfully directed DIT's attention to all of the areas in its proposal that contained significant weaknesses or deficiencies, reasonably leading GDIT into the areas of its proposal where more information was required. Discussions, when conducted, must identify proposal deficiencies and significant weaknesses, and should discuss other aspects that reasonably could be addressed in order to materially enhance the offeror's potential for receiving award. The scope and extent of discussions are a matter of contracting officer judgment. When an agency engages in discussions with an offeror, the discussions must be meaningful, that is, they must reasonably lead an offeror into the areas of its proposal that require amplification or revision. However, this requirement does not obligate an agency to spoon-feed an offeror nor to, effectively, rewrite the offeror's proposal by suggesting a specific approach. Here, we find no merit in DIT's assertions that the agency was obligated to label each of its discussion questions as to the level of the agency's concern. Where an agency is assessing an offeror's understanding of the requirements, identifying the area of a proposal that creates concern is more than sufficient. Indeed, in assessing an offeror's relative understanding, spoon-feeding an offeror by suggesting a particular response is neither required or appropriate. While the fact that DIT's responses to the agency's discussion questions did not fully address and/or eliminate the agency's concerns may reflect on DIT's understanding of the solicitation requirements, it does not establish that the discussions were less than meaningful. DIT's assertions regarding the agency's discussions are without merit. The protest is denied.